again, as I always say, it's a student athlete that you focus on your academics, because that's what's going to lead you to the next step. Any day we can be walking down the street here, something happens, and we can't play soccer anymore. So that's how I've viewed things with my academics, with what I've done collegiately, and so you can be prepared if something was to happen. You will always have that education there.
How was your experience? Because how about letting everyone know what college you attended and how your experience was?
Well, I've gone through a lot of what our current players are going through as far as after I arrived to this country. I came to the U.S. when I was 9 years old. I'm originally from Valparaiso, Chile, and I grew up in the Bailey's Crossroads area, where I attended Jeff Stewart High School, and I played NCSL. This is what 30 something years ago, but NCSL. So a lot of the things that our current players are going through, your current coaches and so forth have gone through that as well. Then I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship to go to GW, where I played 4 years there, got my undergraduate degree in international business, played a couple years professionally, and but at the same time when I was playing professionally, I was working on my master's degree. So that's where education comes into play again. Even if you're following your dreams and so forth, that you can continue your education, because again, you got to be prepared. That's always going to be there for you. And then after, actually, it was an injury, I tore my ACL, and I was hitting my 30s, and I said, I was finishing my master's degree in education and student counseling, and I was offered a job with Fairfax County Public Schools, and that's where we are now. And I've been there for 20 years at Annandale High School now.
Awesome. And your experience when you were in college, when you were trying to juggle your academics and your soccer, how were you able to stay on top of your game on both sides of it?
It's I think a huge word is time management. Being able to spend time in your academic workload that you have, which you take 4 to 5 classes each semester, and then have the time that you have to go to training and fulfill those roles, those responsibilities, throughout the year. And so I think time management is a huge part for our young players, whatever grade you're in, to kind of focus on. But having that skill helps you not only in the field, but in the things that you're going to do in your everyday life. So I think, especially depending on what schools you're looking to attend and apply, there are more rigorous schools that the academic workload is really heavy. So that's important to be able to kind of manage both responsibilities that you have.
Sure. Again, folks, please feel free to ask the questions. Right now, I currently don't have any questions, but I'm sure that some people will come up with some here. I'm just looking to make sure no one raised their hand. Some of you attendees can raise your hand, and you can ask a question to Coach Marcelo as well.
I think something else, Alan, to elaborate. Many of our maybe listeners or our players are rising juniors, right, for next fall. It's important that, as we talked about the clearinghouse and so forth, and how testing, SAT or ACT, is a huge part of it, almost everyone took their PSATs. Okay, so that's a great tool for you guys to have and start looking at and analyzing it with your families, and looking in areas that you need to improve on. in those areas that you need to maybe bring your score a little bit higher up. So this time that we kind of quote unquote have some downtime to look at those resources to kind of get you prepared to when you really take the SATs when it starts counting. Um, you really want to be able to take an SAT by the end of your junior year at a minimum, maybe in between your junior year, halfway through your junior year, to take an SAT. Those tests that you can take multiple times, so you have an idea where you stand and the areas where you need to improve on. So I think that's important to keep in mind during this time.
That's fantastic. PSAT for sure is a great way to start to get to know the SAT. I mean, it's some people are better test takers than others. So I'm a person that believes, you know, the better prepared you are for it, the better chance you will have at being successful on the test. One of the questions here is, what college did you attend?
I was down the road, right over the bridge. I attended GW. Um, you know, where it's a very good institution, and again where I got a very good education. Um, you know, I was fortunate again there to play the all 4 years at GW. But I think, you know, it's important as young adults, as our young players, to start and again and use this time to really start setting goals for yourself. You know, in the soccer field, outside the soccer field. Okay, but it really gives us time, even as adults, as coaches, to kind of evaluate yourself of where you are in your life during this time. So you know, as you move forward, you know, start writing things down. And where do you see yourself within a year, within 5 years, within 10 years? So it's really important to, you know, set those goals that you have something to kind of work towards.
Fantastic. Along with what college you went to, one of the questions here is, how was your experience playing at GW?
It was great. I mean, one of the reasons that, you know, to tell you a quick story, I was really recruited like my sophomore, junior year because I was playing against the coach at when I was 14 years old. We were playing with men, so you know, and I wanted to stay local, and I didn't want my parents to pay for anything. And I was offered a full ride, and I attended there. I have one of my best friends, and those relationships you build over time with former teammates and so forth. And that's a huge part for me of building relationships with people. It was funny because probably a month ago I went to a GW basketball game, and I saw a familiar face, and it was a kid that was a freshman, came in with me as a freshman, but only stayed at GW for a small season, had an injury, went back to Miami. He was from Miami. So I haven't seen him in 20 something years. I look at him and I say, "Is that Ben?" "Yes, it's Ben." To make a long story short, this guy's running GW Hospital now. The president of GW came here from the University of Miami. He's starting to bring all his people from the University of Miami. So this kid that, you know, we played together for half a year runs GW Hospital. So it's a great place to network, to see new people, right? To meet new people that, you know, will help you, and or you build those relationships as you go, right?
Definitely. Um, so jumping to a couple other questions, a couple of them have to do with re-recruiting. So they wanted to know, one of the questions is, how did you catch a college coach's eye and attention? I think you mentioned playing against them. Uh, and of course, they kind of want to know a little bit about the recruiting process between ninth grade, 10th grade, 11th grade, you know, the camps, showcases. If you could go into a little bit of that stuff.
I think, you know, especially that our kids are so fortunate to have coaches like you guys and our coaching staff that you know, getting themselves ready to coach, we fill games and so forth, to really use the resources around them. It's key. Um, as far as recruiting, to use again those videos, making those contacts to with those coaches that depending on what university they want to attend. But really to start that process early, right? Because of again, there's only certain amount of spots maybe that particular school may have and so forth. But I always keep going back to, as they're putting this wish list together, right? To look at, for me, to look at the academics first. Where do I want to go? If I don't have soccer, okay, if I was to break my leg, am I going to be happy at that school, right? Make sure that you are visiting and so forth. But for me, as a school counselor and as a soccer coach, as a dad, I always start from there, from the academics, because I want to go to UVA. I'm a great player, but I have a 1 point something. I don't care
Yeah.
how good we are, right? You won't
Not
be able to
getting
get
in.
into those schools,
Mm-hmm.
and even at the highest level, when we go to Georgetown just won the NCAAs. There's a tremendous player that they want, but they can't get them in because of academics. So that's where we should start, right? For
Mm-hmm.
where are my grades at the end of my sophomore year, my junior year? Okay, now I can start putting a list of schools together based on my grade point average, based on my SAT scores, and now I have a wish list. Maybe I want to look at some D1 schools, a couple of D2 schools, maybe D3 schools that are, you can find some very good academic schools at the D3 level that has some very good programs. And then you start that process, contacting those coaches. Maybe you go to a camp over the winter at that school because that coach could see you, or another coach from a particular university that you have in your wish list may be there running the camp as well. And then making those contacts constantly with those coaches. You have to be able to kind of sell yourself to where you want to go. But I think at the end of the day is finding the right fit in all regards, academics, okay, and where you want to play as well. I think that's the key. Um, Using the resources, like I said before, with all the coaches, because we've gone through those experiences. Make sure that you are speaking to them, as much as you can, and we're going to be honest with you. We'll ask you where your grades are, where you see yourself maybe playing, and then help you navigate that process. I think all of us within our coaching staff and outside our coaching staff have the context and so forth that can help you in a way to help you through this process.
Yeah, so I think that's great. Just go ahead, Jimmo.
I was going to piggyback off that. There's a lot that goes into recruiting. As Marcelo was saying, you kind of have to market yourself to the coaches because you're one of, hundreds of thousands of kids that probably want to go to, especially the top schools, and play. And so having film, having the teams that we coach, or the teams at the higher level, at the older age groups, have team information sheets when you go to tournaments and showcases to hand out to the coaches that are there. You have to make contact with them and get in their face, basically get known, attend their camps, go to the top showcases if you can, and put together film so that they can see you. If they aren't able, if it's a school that doesn't come to say our showcases, you have to put film together to send out to coaches. From the little film I had from my high school, that's what I did with the VHS tape. I would, my brother did the same thing. We would send, film to coaches, and a lot of times it seems like they might not respond, but eventually you'll get somebody who does. But also, like I think what Marcelo is kind of pointing out, is you have to look at the total package. What is the school like in terms of its size, its location, East Coast, West Coast, Midwest, South, is it a private school, the expenses, the finances of it. And then obviously academics. You visit the school to see what it's like at different times of the year. You want to talk to some of the players currently on the team to get an idea of how the program is run. You might want to watch some of the games that they play, say the style of play is the way that you like, and look at the roster, because if they're graduating a lot of seniors in a couple of years, that the year that you're entering, that's a good opportunity, obviously, to get into those teams. And so that can factor in. Obviously, if you have your favorite school, the school your dad went to or your mom went to, then that might play a factor in this as well. But for the most part, I think there's more than just wanting to play. You got to figure out what school fits best for you and for your family too, right? Because they're going to be the one that's supporting you while you're there, and for the most part. And I think I don't know if Mikkel and Tyler talked about the recruiting process, but today's game was a little bit different than when Marcelo or even I went through, in the sense that you have YouTube, you have access to more resources. The coaches have ability to influence the coaches' decisions. I've had a number of conversations, so has Alan, with the college coaches about my players in order to give them a good recommendation. I've written recommendations for players as well. And so all of that goes into the coach's decision of whether or not they want to bring you in or even watch you, first of all, at a showcase. And that's typically speaking how the process works. It's a long process that you have to start kind of sophomore, freshman year in high school, start identifying some of the schools you might want to target, send out emails, which we have email templates that you guys can use to kind of send out to everybody, and start to get your name known, right? As well as video. So I think those all are good, like tactics of how to market yourself.
Sure.
Those are great point, Jimmy. I think I said it before that, it's a good time to put that wish list together. Especially those players that are going into your junior year, going into your sophomore year, depending on what level that you are playing in, right? You start putting and writing down, okay, the schools that you want to play. Start doing your research through the internet now.
Yeah.
There's so many resources that you can start doing research on what type of institution it is and so forth. Obviously, their soccer program, by just using all the resources that you have with you. I think that's key. Getting started early, okay? Don't wait until obviously towards the end of your junior year to start this. Start this now. If you're a freshman, start thinking about the things that are necessary to make yourself competitive, okay? To kind of sell yourself, okay? And then it's not only the soccer part of it, it's the academics as well, okay? I think it's huge.
I forgot to mention one thing. You have to make sure depending on what you wanted to study, you have to make sure that school also has the right majors for you, the best majors, right? The best school for the major that you want to that you're going to major in while you're in school. So that's also part of the academics, I think, that influenced my decision. For example, between transferring to University of Washington versus Santa Clara, I knew at that time that I wanted to do computer science or computer engineering, and obviously Microsoft is in Seattle, so that was one reason why I kind of leaned that way. But then there's a ton of computer companies or technology companies in Silicon Valley as well. So, thinking about your post-college career or post-soccer career, you have to think about what you're going to be doing afterwards. That's also a big factor.
Right. I think to piggyback on what we're discussing, I think especially if you're in high school, you had the opportunity to meet with your school counselor back in January, February, to look at your academics for this upcoming fall. A big part of it is also the type of classes that you're taking, guys. What does your academic load looks like? Are you a student that is just is taking English 11, or will be taking, say, English 11 that in English 10 pass with an A? Is English 11 the right fit for you? Or maybe taking an English 11 honors class is going to be the better fit, or taking an AP course is going to be the better fit. Okay, so those are the things that you also have to take into consideration, the classes that you want to take. Obviously, AP courses, IB courses are weighted, right, at full point, which is going to increase your grade point average if you if you earn a good grade. But because when you start this process, yes, some school soccer can get you into the door and so forth, start budging that door, but that it's, and a lot of times it's not fully going to kick that door down. All right, these coaches are always going to look at what's this kid's GPA is like, what type of classes they've taken, and so forth. So, you know, as you're looking at your academic load for next year, look at those courses. You know, challenge yourself academically in certain areas where you can be successful.
And I think, just to piggyback on that again, that was something that even in my interview, I mentioned that, you know, you have to, soccer's second to the academics. Even in my family, it was kind of a privilege to play. And first I had to get the grades. And talking about AP classes, I took 5 AP classes my senior year and junior year. So I was in AP physics, chemistry, biology, English, math. And so I was taking as many AP classes as I could to boost my marketability to these coaches, because if it's easier to get you into the school, they don't have to use their influence with the school on you to get you in. If you're an easy candidate, you can automatically get in. And obviously financially, if you can cover yourself, it makes it easier. But having good academics gets you academic scholarships, which is the reason why I was able to go to Santa Clara. I was able to offset some of the cost of a private institution like that because my academics were really good. And so it made it easier for the coach to say, hey, I don't have to give you money this year, but because you're academically, you know, doing well, we can figure out a way to get you, put a package together financially. And by the time I was a senior, I was technically speaking on a full ride, but only on a partial soccer scholarship, because I was able to use the academic side of things to get scholarships. So they don't have to waste as much resources because it's limited. It's 9.9 scholarships, I think, for soccer. Yeah. And so they divide that. You know, Marcelo went on a full ride. That's a full scholarship for somebody. And that's very rare for a freshman to get a full ride. And they have to divide 9.9 scholarships between 20 plus players. And usually the older that you are, the juniors and seniors, or the better you are, if you're a younger player, those players get partial scholarships. My younger brother was on a partial scholarship when he first joined. And it's certain percentages that they use. But so I don't know if we're going into the finances thing, but I think academically pushing yourself helps you be marketed to all the schools. It opens up your options. If you're at a lower GPA, some of these schools have a cutoff. Your cutoff is 3.0, and if you're not 3.0, they can't get in the school. The coach can literally not get you into the school. And then the last thing I'll say is that there's some schools that use good GPAs to offset the bad GPAs on their teams. It's an average that they have to maintain across the team. It's kind of a little inside thing that college coaches know about and some players know about. And if you're academically, I've had a couple players who got into the school or recruited to the school simply because their academics were 4-point whatever, and it helped the team academically, right? So that's part of it as well. It's a big part of helping you market yourself and making it easier for yourself when the opportunities do come to get recruited. So
fantastic. We got some questions. We got some good questions here. So Marcelo, did anyone else play soccer in your family?
Yeah, we're a football family. So, you know, my brother, who also coached at McLean several years ago, you know, actually that's why we're in this country pretty much, because my dad was a diplomat from Chile, and we came here only for 2 years. And my brother got a soccer scholarship. He attended the University of the District of Columbia, which is a D2 school. And then, you know, he studied there for the 4 years, and then it was time for me I was in high school and so forth, and then we just stayed in America, right? But everything around the soccer ball. But yeah, it's basically just my brother that was a very good player. You know, it's just 2 of us, so he was obviously a big influence on the soccer part and the other things that I do in my everyday life.
What age did you start playing soccer?
Well, as we all know, I think you know,
you can walk, right?
Yeah, exactly. You grow up in South America, and you step outside the house, and there's a soccer game going on. So, and it's not a nice grass field; it's cement. So if you fall, you're scraped up. But and the games are 20 against 20, the entire street. You could be 6 years old and playing against the 20, 25-year-olds, and they'll kick you and so forth. But as sometimes as coaches, we tell you guys these stories, and you may laugh, but it's true. I mean, and or you read it in a newspaper, but it's true, and that's how you become a better player. Because you start knowing the things that we may not be able to teach you, or you pick up from a young age, and then it just comes naturally. One of the things that, for example, when I first came to this country back in 1981, where you're taught when we play the games, we always tell you, hey, even when you're running, you have your hands out here to protect yourself. So when I got here, I would go like this, and the rest would think it's a foul. So, but those are things that you learn on the streets, and you pick up things as you grow up. But yeah, I mean, there's a ball, and you start playing when you start walking.
As soon as you can walk. That's a great question. What position did you play?
Well, my main position was an attacking midfielder, so I wasn't that much of a defender. So I had a lot of guys that would do a lot of the dirty work and then find me in good positions on the field. So, but I started playing as an attacking midfielder. I believe in college we played a 4-4-2. I sat right next to our holding midfielder, played with one holding midfielder, and and attacked from 3/4 field, forward. And then towards the end of my college career, I played up top more. Even though, yeah, again, you guys know me, my stature is small, not the biggest guy, but that's why we tell our players. I know we have players in our program that are my size, but it's not that. It's here, right? It's the body position that you take. It's the angle to take. When you receive the ball and so forth. You see the best players in the world. You see Aguero, Messi, all those guys. But it's just make sure that we keep watching games. You always are alert to your coaches. You train like you want to play, right? Because you never know who is watching you at any time. So all those little things. But as a player, I like playing midfield. Wasn't that much of a defender. I probably played more defense when it really counted when I played professionally. You have to do it. And but yeah,
Awesome.
Marcelo's being very, very modest, by the way. I just pulled up his bio. He was a Hall of Famer at George Washington, by the way.
Holy moly.
Third all time in career points, including 27 goals and 40 assists.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's very modest.
Yeah, he is. Fantastic. All right. So another question here. Do college coaches, scouts attend any tournaments that McLean teams play in? If so, which tournaments and at what ages? I mean, I could probably help answer that one too.
Yeah, I think, go ahead, Coach. Go ahead, Alan.
Well, yes, McLean has had many colleges scout our games. I remember when I started to work with Jamil, I got to see it firsthand with his older guys. And as I had the age group below him, we started to go to National League and play in those events. And I just remember the first time when we had like 100 coaches on our sideline, and it was just like, wow. I believe we had a parent take a picture. So yeah, we had many coaches. We even recently at our ECNL game that we hosted a few weeks before, I think it was in January. We had a couple college coaches come out as well. So I try really hard to make sure that the college coaches are aware of our schedules, where we're playing at. Even if we're traveling to play ECNL games away, I tell the boys that there's a school in North Carolina or South Carolina, reach out to them. The worst they can say is they can't make it, but they might show up. I believe even when we played CISA, I know CISA had some coaches at the games when we played them. So we definitely have many scouts and coaches attend some of our McLean events.
Yeah, and I think the main ones you probably can list out. I think so. Just to understand that the recruiting window is probably U16 and up. Would you say maybe U15 starting? But for the most, the serious recruiting is done usually those final 2 or 3 years of high school. So very rarely do they attend anything besides a showcase. They come to some games, league games, every once in a while, but the majority of coaches go to the major showcases. We call them showcases when they get older because they're there for the college coaches. And so you'll see all the tournaments, the normal tournaments, say, for example, Bethesda, Thanksgiving, or our McLean showcase is for the college coaches. And then there's the Florida ECNL events, all the ECNL events, basically, the one in Florida, one in Pennsylvania, that are good for well attended. Before that we would play a national league and get coaches there. But for ECNL teams and green teams and white teams, it's going to those showcases. The local showcases are the best opportunities to be seen, or to make contact at least. And that's where Alan was saying, you send your schedule out, you have somebody and one of the parents will walk the fields to hand out team sheet information sheet, with every player's image and name and position and GPA and things like that. And so that the coaches have an idea of who they're looking at while they're watching. And then typically speaking, you can make follow-up after the games to let you know if you're interested with whatever coach or whoever was there to watch you. And you start that process, and they'll usually contact you if you're old enough. By junior year, they can contact you directly, or they'll contact us, or both, to get a recommendation. They'll usually invite you to a camp, and that kind of kicks things off. So I know doesn't always work out where the coaches can come watch you play, and then they'll usually ask for film, or they'll just talk to the coach about your skills and whether or not your recommendations. So the main ones.
Here's an example of. I'm going to share my screen here so everyone can just see an example of what our
team sheet looks like.
Our this is the U17's team sheet. I'm trying to move it over and being stuck. 1 second here. Let's try this again. There we go. All right, and here's an example of the U17s, 2003s. This is basically a brochure that we printed out, and like Jamil was saying, that we have a parent walk around and hand them out to the coaches. The coaches are very weary about that sometimes, but at the same time, then they want the information because they want to be able to reach out to a player that caught their eye. And then there's been times where after a game, they'll come up to me after a game and talk to me about a player, or they'll text me, or they'll give me a ring, or they'll shoot me an email that night. So that's kind of how it goes. But there's a little example. I think some teams have other ones that look different, but it's pretty basic. We have the name, the number, their GPA, their height, their weight, and their current high school and the year they're graduating. And that's usually the information. And then the contact information for the player. That's the information that those coaches are looking for.
I think also, I think we mentioned it before, guys, as you're putting the students that are in high school, you're putting your list together, keep a balance of schools that you want to apply to, or you think you could play in. Some maybe 7 schools overall, 8 schools overall at most. Some D1, some D3 maybe, because there's some very good academic D3 schools that are considered almost at the Ivy League level academically, and also have very good soccer programs.
Yep.
And a lot of those D3 schools are able to could play a D1 school and give them a very good game. So
Absolutely.
Don't get caught up so much on the label. I think that the most important thing is just, as Coach Jamil said before, is trying to find the right fit overall. Soccer, academics, what's going to be the right fit for you.
I got a bunch of questions coming through now. So here we go. How do the most goalkeepers get noticed and recruited? Is it the same as field players? I know none of us here are goalies, but You I'm sure have helped some keepers get recruited. So what do you think to that?
Yeah, I think it's a similar. I mean, it's a similar way, the similar process that a field player would take on. Um, as far as when you're going through this process, contacting the colleges and so forth, using film now that if you have that available, very similar as field players. I think also a lot of our goalkeepers, since it's a little bit more specific, obviously, have their individual goalkeeper coaches and so forth for that coach of the university or vice versa to get in contact with each other so they can discuss, your strengths and so forth, your weaknesses, and just overall your as you are as a player and always going back to the academics component.
Coach Emil, anything to add to that?
I think for
For the keepers?
goalkeepers, it's a little bit more difficult because of usually just two goalkeepers on the team. I remember for our team that won nationals, I had to kind of split the time between the goalkeepers or give them a game here and there. Like when they had coaches coming, we would have an agreement between the players to say, hey, I'll play the full game today and you play the full game tomorrow so that you get the looks because sometimes you have to time that stuff, right? And so as well as it's a little bit harder in the sense that sometimes if your team is really strong, you're not getting the action in goal for the coach to be able to evaluate you. So what I have, some goalkeepers, I think Tony did this, had kind of a highlight tape of him in training, right? Showing him working through drills with his personal trainer, his goalkeeper trainer, just to highlight himself as like, these are the things I had, able to do to help supplement his recruitability. And so I've seen that done as well. But you have to go to the camps. You have to, like a normal field player, you kind of have to make the same, like Marcelo said, make the contact in a similar way. But it's a little bit different because you're single position that we're talking about. So
yeah, thanks, Oliver, your goalie.
Thanks. A lot of these programs, guys, offer these either I don't know now, but during the winter time, maybe during the summertime, a 1-day camp that at times is not very expensive. But again, it gives you just for that coach to look at you, especially the goalkeepers. Okay, that you could maybe work with their goalkeeper coach and so forth, or another coach from another school, but just to kind of get seen and get exposed to those coaches.
Yeah, I definitely think goalkeepers are probably going to be in touch with the goalkeeper coaches, and those are going to be the guys you're going to probably be sending your highlights to. They're there, and then they'll be making recommendations to their coaches. But definitely, I think the process is very similar. But it's also difficult, like you said. It's a single position, so a lot of competition there. Okay, another question here. As a rising ninth grader, what shall I do now to increase my opportunities to play in college?
I think it goes back again. I think how we started it. It's kind of evaluating yourself right now, being, using this time to really think where you are and where you want to get to, the areas of your games that you need to keep improving on. Okay, so do you need to get more technical, or your technical speed needs to improve, your tactical awareness and so forth. Just really working in all those areas that's going to make you a better player. I think if you keep working in those areas each day, it's going to make you hopefully a better player, and it's going to help you make a specific team that that team maybe will be able to go to other showcases and be exposed to more college coaches and so forth. But I think as a young player entering your ninth grade year, obviously number one, your academics, and number two is looking at your game in the areas where I need to get better as a player, and using this time to really work in those specific areas to improve your overall game.
Jamil, anything to add?
Um,
For a rising ninth grader?
No, I think each person. I think Marcelo answered it well. I think each person kind of has to look at themselves individually and see where, even though you're ninth grade, academically, your maturity, physically, you could be ahead of the game, and start to think about some of the recruiting aspects of it. I know at the girls' side, they used to recruit a little bit earlier at this time at ninth grade, and it's not impossible to go to these camps, go to a college camp, and get on the radar of a coach as a ninth grader. So just keep that in mind. If you're ahead of the game physically and are playing at a high level, they'll take a look. They can't obviously contact you directly, but you can make contact starting at any point in time, really, and reach out to them. And if they're really interested, they'll look at you and they'll ask the coach about you. So I think that's important.
Absolutely.
I think we're in an area that we're very fortunate to be in an area that there's so many universities, very good schools around, and so close to where we are to kind of take advantage of that. American University, GW, Georgetown,
Yep.
VCU, George Mason, Mary Washington. That's, it's a school that goes unknown, but it's a very cool, it's a D3 program and very good school. So just use our area where we live in to your advantage and making contacts with those coaches that maybe it's an off week or something. They can drive down, watch a practice or watch a game.
I think when I was coming through the process, what I remember, this is probably, they might have it on the internet now, but they had a book that I had like a college, like they listed all the schools by division of all the programs in the country. So it was one book that had everything: the demographics of the school, the finances of the school, the requirements, SAT wise or ACT wise to get in. They kind of had, I don't know if they have it now, but a book with all the schools in it that allowed me to kind of flip through if there was, because I was, unsure about which schools even existed, as you might not know that there's some schools in your area that fit your criteria. I think there's probably a way of doing this online now, but I remember having to purchase a book that basically had all the schools across the country, all the soccer schools across the country, and by division, and kind of give you an idea of what's out there. And there's a lot of schools out there that are good fits and have good programs that you probably never even heard of, because everyone gets stuck with D1, right? Whoever won recently, right? Georgetown won recently, so now a lot of kids are thinking Georgetown, but I bet you never heard of Akron a few years ago, right? When they won it. And it was the kids who were in that area that recruited that school who didn't know that school would end up being one of the top programs in the country. And you would never think Akron, I'm not going to go to Akron, I don't want to live in Akron, but that's a good soccer program if you're looking for that. So I think it's important to kind of know yourself, because some kids, say for example, don't want to go to school in a cold weather or near their parents. I know that was my brother. He wanted to go somewhere warm and away on the other side of the country. And you know yourself enough to know that like it fits academically, it fits financially, it also fits my personality. Is it a big school, small school? Santa Clara was a small school where I went. And it doesn't have a football program because that might affect you in terms of your lifestyle there. A lot of that goes into it, but yeah, I'm sure we can find a resource that has all that. It's probably Sports Source is the book. Okay. Yeah. Somebody just chatted it in the text. Mm-hmm. I think they sell it. So
Christian. Oh, that's Christian. Coach Christian. Thanks, Coach Christian.
Thanks.
Awesome.
You can use that.
All right, I got a couple fun questions here. Let's see. What's your favorite team? Favorite player, Marcelo?
I'd say my favorite team is Everton, but it's not Everton from England. It's Everton from Chile. But which actually nice. There is a similarity, because obviously the English back in the day, they went the area where I'm from, and that's why they named those teams Everton, and the other team is the Wanderers. But but I follow the players that are from my country, Arturo Vidal and Alexis Sanchez, so I kind of follow their teams and so forth. But a favorite player, when you look at a favorite player, maybe you look at a player that kind of fits how you play a little bit, right? And obviously that's Messi, or but I just like to watch good football, good soccer, on how you see the game individually, right? But not really a player that I follow all the time or a specific team. I like the Chilean national team, which we won 2 out of the 3 last Copa Americas, but we're getting older now, so.
Have you watched the Brazil the All or Nothing? They did the Brazil when they won in Copa America.
Oh, really? No.
It's really good. I mean, obviously the Chile's in there because you guys played them,
Right.
but it's a really good. It's on Amazon Prime. Let's see here, Jamil. How about you? We remember, I think, from your last week, John Barnes was your favorite player, and your favorite team is
Liverpool. Easy one.
For those of you for me, my favorite team is Arsenal, and my favorite player was Thierry Henry.
Right.
That's great.
Everyone, all my guys know they like to mess with me about my Arsenal squad. All right, I'm just answering this question here. Now, let's see here. What was your best experience playing in college?
Playing in college, I think, aside from, going back to the human part of it, of the relationships you build, right? I think for me, it's the most important things. Because sometimes how I see it, games come and game goes, or you play in college or you play pro. Not that it doesn't matter, but it's the human part of it. I think that's the most important thing that I take out of it. But maybe when you make those long trips, for example, we're D1, GW's a D1 school. We went to the Stanford Classic or Stanford Invitational, where we played in Palo Alto. We played against Stanford, University of San Francisco. When you go to Duke, we played the Duke Invitational. You play Duke, you play NC State. So once you play in those high caliber games or tournaments, and you kind of measure yourself up with the other competition, 25, 30 years ago, whenever I played. But those experiences of playing those games at those levels, I think is memorable overall.
How about you, Coach Jamil? Was there a certain game or experience?
I think I'd like Marcelo. There isn't any specific games. I think winning the league, WCC West Coast Conference league at the end of the year and the final game was probably one of the highlights. But my team never went very far in the NCAA's. We always lost to Stanford, and unfortunately, the year after I left, they went to the Final Four. So it was kind of like bittersweet, but it's the experience which you have in the guys at the locker room, the enjoyment you get just being around your fellow Warriors, I guess is a way to put it, and going through that experience and growing, from your freshman year to your senior year, as a player, as a person, and just seeing how far you've come. So I think that's also what makes it great about playing the sport in general at any level, really. That's what you have to take away from it, is the kind of the life lessons, the experiences with your teammates. As coaches, we've all won stuff, with your teams, but I think it's not the trophy that I hold on to. It's more of the experiences and the players and the relationships that I've had that I will always remember. And to this day, you're still friends with and still talk to a lot of teams or players that you used to coach. So guys you played against, you remember. I just texting now, in a WhatsApp group with guys. We have a Santa Clara Broncos WhatsApp chat, and we're constantly checking in on each other and seeing things, how things are going. And I think it's just college specifically because it's kind of a transitional period for most kids. They become, who they are in many ways. And everyone kind of remembers their high school, college years as being defining moments of their life before they hit the workforce. And
before the real world hits. And so it's, you become, an adult. And so that's, it's fun to remember all that. So, yeah. Awesome. Great answer.
I think, Alan, just to add on that, just to, to let people know, like when, again, I attended Jeb Stuart High School, which sits in a kind of a medium to low economic area.
I attended my freshman year too.
Okay, there you go. That 3 of us from Jeff Stewart High School went to GW the same year.
Wow.
Three Hispanic kids that went to GW the first year. And
really
you
good.
don't see that. I graduated in 1991. So you don't see that then, and
Very rare.
I never heard that now.
That was a tough time. That was a tough time for
three
sure.
classmates going to the same school to play, So
Kudos to you. That environment, being in that area and that environment at that time, I know it was not easy. You had many distractions around you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So that's an awesome story. Okay, another couple questions here. Let's see. How about this one? Do you have any advice for homeschoolers going through this process?
Yes, it's even if you're taught at that setting, right? You'll still have to go through the same process that if you were at your local high school. From the academics point of view, as far as being eligible to play and so forth, that you need to meet those requirements, right? And also from the soccer, the football part, of the same process of the recruiting process and all that. So I think it's similar, right? Even though that you are being taught, homeschool.
Yeah. I personally think it's much the same. They have to go through as far as the process. The maybe one difference is we may have kids playing high school soccer, and homeschoolers might have some other way that they play some kind of organized sport. I believe I've heard of something. I just can't remember it at the moment. So yeah, I think it's all about, like Coach Emil said earlier, marketing yourself, making yourself the most marketable player that coach is looking at. And that's, your GPA, you know what the school has, and you know why you want to attend it. And I think that really is important. Okay, here's a fun question. What other sports do you play?
Well, again, you go back to your high school years, right? I played basketball 4 years in high school. I'm actually, anyone that wants to take me on 1v1 when we go back.
Okay. All right. Now we're talking.
Not only, again, going back to our childhood, grew up in the Bailey's Crossroads area, but the Colmore area, but I also grew up in Bailey's Crossroads, which is, at the time when I grew up, it was mostly African American, and all my friends, they were basketball players. So I played basketball and played all 4 years. I was in a game where, if you guys remember, maybe our viewers don't remember, Grant Hill, NBA player, played at South Lake High School. And actually, he was a very good soccer player, played until 7th or 8th grade, played for the state champs. They were called Reston Flying Tigers. I still remember them. He was 6 foot something, and then he was such a great basketball player. He quit soccer and played basketball. But Stewart against South Lakes, we played against each other. But basketball, and I played 2 years of football, freshman football, running back, kicker, everything, until I twisted my ankle. Huh? Until I twisted my ankle, and I said, no, thank you very much. That's it. I'm a real football player. South American football. It. Yeah, so that's
I love it.
Sorry, but yeah, I love basketball. So, yeah.
How about you, Jamil? I know you mentioned last week it was track, wrestling.
I ran track and wrestled for a couple of years, but I mean, outside of school, I played every sport. I forgot about this. I actually went to hockey. I played hockey. Went to hockey camp, like on ice. Played golf, and what else? I still play golf. I'm not a organized sports.
We try.
Organized sports. I didn't. It was only soccer and then the high school sports, wrestling and track. So.
Yeah.
But
for me personally.
Go ahead, Coach. Go ahead.
For me personally, I mean, soccer was always number one. I played 1 year of football. I went to Annandale my sophomore year, and I played football that year. They made me play football. I hated it. Coach Adams made me play. I even had to cut the grass with the rest of the guys who was camps and all that. Yeah, But you know, I quickly found that it wasn't a sport that I liked at all. But I played basketball. I was pretty good at basketball, and I still play basketball. So when you say basketball, we should get a coach's game, man.
I think for our kids, you know, I think, you know, times do change, but you know, more kids kind of gravitate now to one sport. And I feel, I don't know how I feel about that, but you know, if you have the ability to, and you could play basketball, and which is a more winter, obviously, for your high school teams, and you're able to play, go ahead and take that opportunity. I think as coaches, we're very flexible, even at the highest level. If you're playing within us in McLean, that we try to work with our kids. But you know, you're only going to go through high school once, and you need to enjoy that time, that opportunity to play.
For sure. It was a fun question. Thank you. Let's see here. Do any of you guys know of any D3 players that went pro?
Yeah. There's some good examples. Well, Chris Wondolowski is a D3 player in MLS. You also have to keep in mind that there's multiple levels of pro in America. There's USL as well. Chris Wondolowski played at San Jose the years after I was there. Rodrigo Faria was also a D3 guy that I mentioned in my talk, who played. He went to, I think, where did he go to? Concordia. There are a bunch. There are a bunch. You probably don't hear about Mike Pecky from DC United. Davey Ardno.
Really?
Yeah, Davey Ardno. Okay. But Chris Wondolowski is probably the most famous because he played in the World Cup. It's that goal against Belgium, which I'm probably not gonna forgive him for. But he went to Chico State. He went to Chico State, which is D3. And there are a number of USL / second division type players who also go on to play, but also at the highest level, at least in our country, MLS. There's a number of examples of players similar to American football, in the sense that it's not just the D1 kids who play American football that play in the NFL. It's all levels. All right. It's not just Ohio State and Michigan and Alabama players that go on to play in NFL. You know, some of the top players went to some, not no name schools, but I don't know,
non-D1 that aren't like that have the big TV contracts,
that have the big programs,
stuff like that. Yeah.
Is it a little bit harder? Maybe a little bit harder in the sense that, but the recruiting, I think the recruiting now because there's more teams, has gotten a lot better in terms of finding talent out there. They recruit overseas. They recruit, all levels of college soccer. And just because you're D1 doesn't mean your team is better than a D3 or D2 program, or the players on those teams. It could be academics, the reason why they're there, or finances, right? Or the circumstances that led them to play at a smaller school. You would think that only the D1 players would get selected first, but that's not the case. We actually at Santa Clara lost to a D2 school in season. It was our first game of our season, and we lost to a D2 school. It's a team that we had not lost to like in 40 years or something like that. It was ridiculous. Coach was very mad, but we lost to them. And there were very good players on that team. And a lot of international players actually end up on these D3, D2 schools, and they're very good international players. They can't afford to, or just don't have the grades to get into the top D1 schools. And so they choose to pick like a UDC or a Mary Washington. That's something that they can academically get into, and also financially. And they're very good players, international players that probably play on their national teams back home.
Many of those players usually, from coaches that I've heard of that recruit players, they played at a professional academy when they were younger, then maybe they just didn't make the cut, and now they're coming to see what the U.S. has and go to school here. And so, the competition is real. And D3 players definitely can go pro.
And I'll just add that the players that I've coached and Alan has coached and that are, I think the profile of the players that we have at McLean, I'll just say that, tend to do best at either good academic Ivy League schools. So if you want to play D1 but at an Ivy League, or a solid D3 program, we've had the most success. It's a lot harder to get into and play at UVA. It's just harder. I mean, or at Maryland. Those are public schools. Everyone wants to go there, and they're well known. And so you get a lot of players going there thinking that's their path to pro, but a lot of players who are not at those programs, or a lot of players get kind of the best players at those programs get recruited, right? But you could be the best player at JMU or George Washington or George Mason and play against those same teams, and the professional coaches will look at those programs and go, hey, that player is the best player at that program. That player is the best at that program. If I can't get that guy, I'm going to get that guy. You're not going to get the guys who are on the bench. You're not going to get the guys who don't play that much at those same programs. You're not just going to go for UVA kids. You're going to go for the best players you could find. And I think that's the key. And, you know, the best example I have of that is Bobby Boswell, who ended up being one of the best defenders in our country and played at DC United for several years and just retired. He was at FIU, Florida International University, which is not a top program. He got recruited because they had a preseason scrimmage against I forget which foreign national team, some national team. And DC United was down there recruiting or looking to recruit one of the players on that national team. And it was the preseason game. And I think he just shut down one of their better players and did a very good job. And so they called him in to camp. That after just watching that game, he went to FIU. It's not like a program that you would even think, I don't even know if they still have a soccer program, but that's the idea, is that it doesn't, your opportunities could come in multiple ways. It's not a resume that's going to get you to pro. It's not a resume saying you played at UVA. That's why you're going to play pro. No, or you play D1. It's a higher level of are you good enough? Are you the best player on that level? And were you seen at the right times? That matters most. So just kind of give you that background.
It goes to show that, you know, you never know who's watching you.
Exactly.
So that's why you have to train and play like it's your last training session. If you really want to get to the highest level, or play like you're not going to take any prisoners, right? So, you know, and there's so many stories of professional players that are playing in Europe that were discovered playing in the 7th division somewhere. So, you know, as a young player, that's what you need to keep in mind. You know, that if you're going through the motions, these guys are going to see it right away.
Yeah,
you know, or if you're training, regular training session, but you're working and you're showing personality. That's one of the things that we tell our players that want to get to that next level. You have to have personality, not a clown, right? But the personality of a soccer player. Meaning, you know, are you demanding? Do you organize your teammates? Do you want the ball? You have to have a personality, you know, when we go out there.
Nice. Couple more questions here. Let's see. Do you know of anybody who went pro right after high school? I know of a player. He went over to Germany. He went to Hilton. His name is Grover Gibson. He's now the executive director and the technical director of FFC.
Now or in the past, there are players that make that jump. Yeah. I mean, Freddie Adu is the most known probably youngster that went. Landon didn't go to college, right? All the Project 40 kids didn't.
Right.
That's right.
Didn't. We have, I think, locally, either Big Bill. I mean, Bill Hamid. Bill, as you guys know, Bill was a player within McLean, one of the clubs that he played through locally, and he finished his last year at Annandale. I worked with them, and then joined DC United, and then they signed him obviously as a homegrown player. But you know, there are a lot of cases that now in America, it's not that it's easier, but it's more common that a player that is playing at that level in high school or youth level that can get done not only by an MLS team but from a team overseas.
Yeah, I mean, even now there's USL teams that are signing the young kids and putting them in like a residency type of situation, and now they're playing with the adults and men and signing them to pro contracts. So it's possible. It's a different path. But again, you can do it. I think if you put your mind to it, you know, put yourself in the right situation. Okay, another one. If you could go back and change anything in your career, what would it be?
That's a great question. Okay, but for me, I think things happen for a reason when it comes down
Hmm.
to it, right? And I tell you a personal story again. When I came to America, we were coached by dads. We didn't have professional coaches like you guys have now. So and actually the gentleman that coached our team did not have any kids in the team. He just grabbed a whole bunch of us from Colmore area and we played. We used to play for a club called Little River back in the day. Very good players. But maybe one of the things that you look back on, and I played for that team since I got here, 9 years old, almost to 17, 18, almost to college. Always play with my friends. Did not want to join any of the better teams coached by the professional coaches, which back in the day there were only three or four. Our coach Ken Krieger, PWSI Jack Sakala, all those coaches, but we never joined those teams that those kids went to UVA, played for Bruce. And so if you look back at, should I made a jump? Maybe that's one of the things you look at, and maybe your path would have been different.
Mm-hmm.
I had early 90s, UVA won 3 or 4 straight NCAA championships. All the kids that I grew up playing with, they went to UVA. I mean, they played. Some of them play more than others. I have some good
Mm-hmm.
friends. But when you look back at it, but it is what it is,
Hmm.
and then you grow, you have your career, and you have your family and all that. But you know, it's all good at the end of the day, right?
Awesome, awesome, man.
But
How about you, Joe?
it's a great story.
Yeah, no, that's awesome, man.
I think in the same vein as Marcelo, I don't really, things happen for a reason. If you can eliminate the injuries, obviously, um, change anything. I mean, I wish I had the Messi's brain and Ronaldo's physicality. I mean, obviously, if you wish genetically speaking, you were stronger or bigger or faster, whatever it was. But in terms of decisions that happened or that I've made, you wish you had more success. Obviously, you wish you won more, you had more fun. Like I had fun, obviously, anyway. But you just obviously you look back at it and you go, I wish I could have had a longer career. I think I mentioned in my interview, I wish I could have earned more of a starting role as opposed to being kind of a backup when I played. But still wouldn't trade it what I had for anything. So
Mm-hmm.
even the injuries, even the bad experiences, that's what shaped who I became as a player and obviously who I am now. So you can't really look back at those things, but it's fun to think about what could have happened. I wish I played in the World Cup. So, but I think you look at that as a goal and you think, well, maybe I'll do it as a coach. And that's kind of how I think about things. It didn't happen one way, it might happen another way. And if it doesn't happen at all, I'll do something else. So I think that's the way to think about things.
Last, what? Let's see, a couple more questions.
Yeah, a few more.
Can you still get looked at by recruits at a young age?
Technically speaking, yes. I don't think that stops them from watching. They can't talk to you though.
Mm-hmm.
That's the rules, the NCAA rules. I mean, you could be scouted by scouts can, I think, talk to anybody, especially professionally. Professionally, you can talk to anybody. But college recruiting, they're limited to, even now we have limitations on what Jonesy can do, right? For, there are a lot of rules. NCAA has a lot of
windows that.
Yeah. In terms of, they can't really make contact to the summer of your junior year, right? Between your sophomore.
They can't make. I think now they can't make contact till the beginning of or the summer of junior year, like right before they start junior year.
Yep.
Some of the rules have just recently changed a bit, more for the girls' side, but less for the boys. But I think how you would define young age here. I think anything sophomore, freshman. That's probably your young age, and anything younger than that, you're not really going to probably be getting recruited by college. If you're a top player, maybe some other pro academy is recruiting you of some sort. But yeah, I think, anything below a freshman in a high school, you're probably not getting recruited unless you're a guy that's playing up on a team, something like that.
Yeah.
Who was a soccer player that you looked up to?
It's kind of similar to what we.
Yeah. Well, I mean, for me, I'm older than both of you guys, but And these kids, if they go to YouTube, probably the best player in the world, even, I don't know, similar to same stature as Messi, but Maradona, Diego Armando Maradona was, when you kind of emulate a game, your game after someone, and overall, at the stature, you look at how you see yourself playing. But if our listeners can maybe YouTube some of who he was and some of his games, unbelievable.
For sure, Maradona in my household. I mean, my dad, that was the player that he looked at. And so Maradona was always, anytime there was a game on, my dad's from El Salvador, so obviously El Salvador national team is number one, but it was like anytime Argentina played, he was watching them play. Actually, one of my favorite things about Maradona, there's a clip of him warming up for a game, and he's dancing to what's the name of the song? I think it's "Love Is Life." It's just a guy who's juggling the ball, the music's going, and he's going to the music, and people are like cheering him because he's doing this stuff that skillers do, and it's just it's for me, it's Maradona in essence, pure footballer, man, pure footballer. How about you, Jamil? Anyone? Oh, you said John Barnes. Anyone else maybe you looked up to?
Looked up to, probably that would be it. I mean, when I was a young player, that was who I watched mostly. Maradona, obviously, watched the '90 World Cup. Things that he did was amazing.
Have to watch the '86 World Cup, Coach.
Yeah. That too. I saw highlights, but I was only 5 years old at that point in time.
Go watch the goal. Go watch the goal against England from midfield.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So another question here is, what club did you guys play at? I think Jamil, he mentioned the Dips.
Yeah.
When you were in this area.
A number of different clubs.
So you go ahead, run through them.
Reston, Herndon, Vienna.
That's right. And Coach Marcelo?
I played for, like I said, there used to be a club. They still have NCSL number, actually.
Really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's used to be called Little River Soccer Club. And then one season for Annandale Boys and Girls. And then I joined a team for Vista. It was Vista. And we won the U19 National Championship, which is the McGuire Cup. So that's the only time I played with someone else. At 19, it was after my freshman year in college that you could still play.
Wow, so you won the McGuire Cup, huh?
Yeah.
Did not know that.
He's holding out.
He's holding out. He's holding out on us. Let me find out, man.
So not that many clubs that I played with. Yeah.
Fantastic. Here's a good one. Is it hard balancing academics and soccer in college? Coach Marcelo?
I think it goes back to time management for you to be successful on and off. I think that's number one. Looking at your priorities, that you're there for your academics, and that part needs to be first. Because if it's not, you're going to be ineligible. You're ineligible. You won't be in the team. You won't be in the school. I think that's the most important thing to keep in mind. I think nowadays, I went to college. I started in 1991. The resources that student athletes have in all these schools is unbelievable, because you do get additional help. You have the tutors, you have them within, for example, at GW, it's the Smith Center. The Smith Center's all varsity athletes now, where they have computers and tutors and so forth that can help you in all your academic areas. So you have the support, the resources for you to be successful once you get there.
Yeah, the short answer is it's not easy because of the the responsibility. You're the only person that's forcing yourself to do everything. Your parents aren't there. You have support systems, obviously the school, the coach, the counselors, have tutors, but it really is on you to make sure you manage your time. You prioritize, the things you have to do, and you take care of everything you need to do to make sure you're still eligible at a minimum. But also, I think you should be pushing for excelling at school, so that you set yourself up for multiple options. And I think it starts now. It starts in high school, even before that, developing the right habits so that you can be prepared for when you're on your own and you have the ability and the freedom to choose between hanging out and playing with your friends and hanging out and playing video games, or going out and partying, or getting your academics done so that you can have the privilege, because it is a privilege at the end of the day, to play. And that's kind of how you have to look at it. It's a privilege to play, and you have to earn it. You have to earn that right to be able to play. And that's how my parents kind of framed it. And I think you should frame it that for yourself. So if you're a person that doesn't like studying and would rather just play, it's good that you train a lot, but it can hold you back unless you're going straight to pro, right? And even if you're a pro and not training yourself mentally to be something else after you're done, those are the people who struggle after they're done playing. You have to prepare for when you're done. And unless you are the top player in the entire world, and even then, even the money you make while you're playing, or the notoriety you get from playing, is not enough to sustain you the rest of your life. You have to be able to do something else. And so, and it could be anything. So you got to keep that in mind, that academics actually are your foundation. And if you're good at studying and getting your work done, you're going to be good at a lot of different things, especially, training in your own soccer and creating your own plans, things like that. So
yeah, it's building those habits.
Building the right habits, for sure.
Awesome. All right. Is ECNL the top league now that the DA doesn't exist? Probably only for MLS. Will ECNL teams be affected? Coach Marcelo, talk to us.
I think for me, and I as I was thinking about our conversation today, the most important thing for our players is to put themselves in the best environment possible, as far as with the coach, with the team that they could play, and where they could be pushed. And as we look at this entire process that we're discussing, from recruiting and so forth, I think you could get to that ultimate goal. Now, is ECML better? Is DA better? Is MLS better? I mean, it's what it comes down to, guys. Is just being in the right environment that's going to fit you. That's the best thing, because I think ultimately you can get to the same goal if you're playing for us or ECNL or MLS, no more DA. So that's the most important thing. Working on your skills, in the areas of the games that you need to improve in, and finding the right fit as far as what coach or team and club you want to play for.
Yeah. I think if you look at it, oh, I have to play for an ECL team to get recruited, you're going at it the wrong way. I think you're looking at it from outside in instead of inside out. I don't like to think like that. Yeah, you want to find the right environment that works for you. You want to play in the best league that you possibly can, but that's not going to define who you are as a player, nor will it make you get recruited. It helps. It's a what I like to call a force multiplier. It is something that adds to whatever you already have. Yeah, are there opportunities at DA and ECNL that are different and possibly helpful to get to college? Yes. But can you get recruited in any environment? Yes. That's the same. It's kind of the same thing as D1 versus D3 question in the sense that obviously we want to push for, because we're in ECNL, that ECNL becomes the top league, because it will help our players. But keep in mind, it's not always for everybody. Just like D1 is not for everybody. And you have to know what you have to know yourself and know what you want and know what will work best for you as a player. Because if you put yourself in a situation where it's not beneficial, you're not going to get the benefits out of it, right? And so, right now, I think without DA, it opens up the door for ECNL being the next wave of players who either play, or the top recruits at the top schools, and maybe even making that crack through to professional teams and national team, where you'll see like on the girls' side, but. Don't rely on that as being the thing that you have to use to get to where you want to. Focus on other stuff, and the environment stuff, the landscape of soccer, which changes all the time, will take care of itself. That's kind of, as a player, you can't really focus on that stuff because it's a distraction to your training, your habits, your school, your relationships, all the stuff that are more important at the end of the day. Like Marcelo and I played NCSL, right? And NCSL kids wouldn't play that now, but it was a good league at the time, and it still is. And so there's nothing wrong with playing NCSL as long as if you're the top player on that team and you're enjoying yourself, you're getting the experiences that you need to get better as a player. And eventually, if you're good enough, you'll get your opportunities to possibly get recruited, go to the same camps that an ECNL player would go to. And I think that's the most important thing to understand.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think the second part of that was, will the ECNL teams be affected? Our ECNL teams, how will it affect them? It's we know competition-wise, we just got better competition. So it will affect us in that manner. We know that we are already playing in a conference in a national league, the ECNL. That is, our conference is very tough, and it just got tougher. So I think it does affect us. I think we'll have to be better at training, more efficient in travel and many things. And so it does affect us, but I think it's in a good way. I don't look at any of this in a negative way for us or our players. Do you think a lot of the top DA players will move now to ECNL since there's no DA? I don't think there's going to be a lot of movement personally. I think those clubs that were in the DA, they're either have recently joined ECNL, or the ones that haven't, they're going to be making their league that the MLS, but will still have outside MLS teams in it. So I think that they're trying to move into those things. And then there's other leagues that are getting formed in different parts of the country. So I think it's, will it affect DA players coming to ECNL tryouts, or if we have tryouts, depending on what happens with everything? It possibly could, but I don't think it's going to be an influx of teams coming to tryouts for age groups or kind of thing like that. That's just my opinion on that.
Alan, just to add on that, and how I see it as a coach and so forth, is that this time, particularly what we're going through, it gives you the opportunity and time to think about yourself and work on your game. Your overall game. If you're at that level type player, the technical, the tactical, the physical, the mental components of the game for you to become better in all those aspects of it. Technically, can you do anything with the ball? If you want to get to the highest level, can you play a 50-yard ball, 40-yard ball driven every time, 9 out of 10, where you want it? So those are areas that individually you can improve during this time. Do not worry about the leagues right now, because again, soccer changes every other week. There's a change, but kind of focus on yourself, being a little bit selfish on what the things that I need to work on to improve my game. So once we get out there, we're ready to go, and I have made some strides.
With that, that's perfect segue into this question. How much training do you have to do every day?
When I was a youth player, per se.
Yeah,
I mean,
you can speak of it of your personal experience.
Or overall. Yeah, personally, I mean, a lot of the things, to tell you the truth, guys, I never had, since I grew up in another country, like a coach at the youth level. Because when I came to America, we were coached by parents. So you players are lucky to have Coach Allen, Coach Jamil, Coach whoever, because they're working at their craft. They're bettering themselves as coaches. Back in the day, you had a parent coach you, so you kind of had to train yourself or work at your game yourself. Look at games. What is, if I'm an attacking midfielder, what's their number 8 or 10, doing in this particular situation? And so really kind of copy, and us coaches are great copiers, because we look at different things and we just apply it to ourselves. So do the same thing as a player. So I'm a right fullback. Okay, when do I want to get forward? When this, so really studying the game. It's a big part of it now, especially with all the different tools that we have. So I think it's important. But for me, I think it's a young player, the technical part of it, and with repetition and so forth, with the correct repetition, it's key. And again, times like these that we can't get out there, for you to work on different things. I think it's perfect just to better your game.
Absolutely. I think, setting a time, a certain amount of time a day, 30 minutes, 45 minutes, 50 minutes, or maybe you want to set touches. I'm going to get 10,000 touches today, 5,000 touches. There's different ways that you can be creative, but I think how much training do you have to do? That's up to you.
How much do you
listen to your body? Listen to your body, of course. How much do you want it? There are some kids that they'd want to be outside and juggling a ball for 4 hours, and there's some kids that they don't. And I think the other part we always talk about, is the technique, but as Coach Marcelo brought up, watching a game, that's training too. Training your mental part of the game, and the tactics and different principles of whatever a coach may want you to play within a system. I think those things ask questions for the coach, and I think that they'll be appreciative. I think that's a definitely important thing to do daily basis. I tell my son, who's 18 years old and trying to figure out his college thing here, and I tell him every day to ask yourself, what did you do to be better? Because when you go to sleep, if you have a goal, I want to be able to answer, I did this today to get closer to that goal. And that's my personal talk to myself. And I've tried to train my kid to have that same kind of talk. Last question. When getting into a good college, can you be very good at soccer but have a lower GPA? Could you still get recruited? Good question.
I think overall, I think it's yes, but it's kind of touch and go as well, right? Depending on what academic institution is recruiting you or wants you to go to their school. I think in this process, unless it has changed over the years, some coaches will be able to kind of throw their weight around a little bit with admissions to go and bat for you, but you have to give them a chance. So if they need you to be at a 3.0 at a minimum, you cannot be at a 2.3 because they can have all the power and so forth because it's soccer. Now, if it was football or basketball, then it's different, right? Soccer is not a revenue, a sport
It's the real world
that generates revenue. So you have to be at least around to what the school is looking to accept their student at. So I think the game itself can get you again into your foot a little bit on the door, but you have to be close for these coaches to kind of help you.
Agreed. I think he hit it on the head.
I think he did too. Christian said there are some very good junior colleges as well. I agree. Absolutely. It's about that. I tell my kids, my 17s and my 18, 19s, I tell them all the time, I will help you in anything you need, but I am going to make you do some work. I've had kids, I need help with an email. Okay, you write the email up, I'll look it over, which I actually have to get one back to one of my players tonight. Okay, I want to send it to a college coach. Okay, well, coach, do you have his email? I maybe have his email, I'm sure somewhere, but you can go on Google and type it in and pull up his email and phone number. So I do make sure that these kids get used to finding information out on their own, because I think that's part of the process. You learn from doing those things. So it's really important. So parents, if you're watching, help guide your kids, but don't do it all for them. Make sure that they're doing their part of it and helping guide them on the right track. Gentlemen, we answered all the questions. Appreciate it. Coach Marcelo, it was great. Look, over this past hour and a half, I got to know you a lot better, man. So, I'm looking forward to when we could play some basketball.
Absolutely. Thank you, Alan. Again, and Jamil, I think our kids at McLean, they're fortunate to have a very good coaching staff with you guys and the other coaches, that all of us bring a particular skill, I guess, right, to the table, or just because of our previous experiences. But, just want to wish everyone well in these times, and thank you guys for having me on. For the players out there, keep working at your game, but the most important thing is start setting those goals for yourself, okay, and what it's going to take to be a better player, to do better academically. And this is a game, so we just need to have fun, right? Sometimes I see too many guys stressed at practice. Go out and enjoy the game, right? It's a little part of overall, because like I said, when we first started, you can be walking, you get hit by a car, and you can't play soccer anymore. But this up here, and your academics, what you have, is going to carry you for the rest of your life, right? So stay safe, and thank you for the invitation, Coach.
Thank you very much, man. Coach Emil, thank you again for being
Thank
on,
you.
and I look forward to seeing everybody next week.
All right.
All right.
All right, have a
All right,
good
Coach.
one.
All right, guys.
too.
Thanks.
Later.